Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. Well, we've gotten through the year 2021. This is, I'll tell you what, New Year's Eve, and it's exciting, and it's a full day, and everybody's really kind of wound up, it seems like, about things, although we've slowed down, volatility's come in, we've seen a lot of changes this week. But let's just jump right to those volumes yesterday. As a matter of fact, we had a little bit of an uptick. After a couple of days of being really, really slow, we were a little bit closer towards that 30 million contracts yesterday. So we've warmed up a little bit there, and maybe that had something to do with some of the volumes that we were seeing yesterday as the markets were shifting around a little bit. The market started off pretty okay on the Dow, had a decent move to the upside. It seems like we hit records on almost a daily basis these days. But all three major indices late in the session had significant moves back to the downside, big pullback. As a matter of fact, the final 20 minutes, the Dow dropped about 75 points. Actually closed the day down about 90 points. You look over at the NASDAQ, sort of a similar story. Final hour, about 100 points coming off the NASDAQ, finished down about 25. And then you look over at the S&P, sort of the same story. Last 40, 45 minutes of the day or so, dropped about 20 points, finished the day down about 14 points. So in most cases, we're sitting there somewhere up in positive territory, and actually all three major indices closed in the red. What was really moving the most in terms of sectors? Well, look at energy. Big flip from energy. As a matter of fact, looking over at where oil was trading, we were talking about 77 oil. Well, we got back a little bit. We were closer to the mid 76 area for the price of crude. Semiconductors is what really, really started to flip. You take a look over at the SMH, it was trading about 313. And in the blink of an eye and the sell-off that we saw, we finished down at about 309. That might not sound like a lot, but that's a fairly significant pullback. And no sector yesterday closed up or down more than 0.75%. And matter of fact, for the most part, many of them are much closer to unchanged. So an interesting day, no doubt. Getting to the end of the year, that's always something that you always have to factor in. We have volatility right around 1730 in a very tight range as well. 10-year is holding right around 1.5. As a matter of fact, today again, still holding around 1.5. Thought the financials have a little bit better participation than what we are seeing. Big jump yesterday. Peloton, got to give Peloton a lot of the credit here. Finally had a decent day after being down. Had a day where it was up more than 7%. Pretty strong day there. Some of the Chinese names started to actually move to the upside a little bit. Now let's remember, they have been absolutely beaten down, particularly those internet names when you look at some of the major indices over from the Chinese markets. But all you've got to do is take a look at some of those, and you can see exactly where some of the pain has become. It's Baidu, PDD, NetEase, Trip.com, all had a great day yesterday. And when I say great day, we're talking about 8% or more moves to the upside. Throw in the casinos as participating to the upside yesterday with Wynn and Las Vegas Sands, but particularly Penn Gaming yesterday had a really, really nice day. And then the weakness, we had that pullback after the big spike in Biogen, finished down on the day by about 7%. Those semiconductors did take a hit. And across the board, whether it's Micron or AMD or Applied Materials, QCOM, looking at Xilinx, all those names pulling to the downside. And what's going on with these cruise ships is definitely something that is going to be very, very difficult for them to navigate once again with some of the restrictions that are being thrown at them as well. You look at CCL, you look at Norwegian Cruise, you look at Royal, all of them taking a little bit of a page from each other and pressed to the downside. Today started very, very tight. We had a little bit of a market in the pre-market where we were looking at the Dow down about 50 points. Once we got to the opening, we had the Dow actually in positive territory. It's up about 30 points, quickly slipped back down about 30 points. And that's kind of where we find ourselves. NASDAQ's moved around just a little bit, just some shifting around. It was flat last I looked, along with the S&P. So kind of quiet. A lot of people are just wondering what happened to the Santa Claus rally. Let's be honest, folks. We've had a rally. 70 record closes for the year on Wednesday. That was the 70th record close. So give you a little bit of an idea of what kind of a year we're coming off of. Santa Claus rally did deliver, but now we're getting to that point where people are just trying to take a breath and look forward and try to figure out 2022, closing out what positions they want to. Some of that closing that we are seeing, I think some great examples of that, maybe some of that yesterday, some of the selling and some of the activity we saw there. I look over at crude, pretty close to unchanged, a little over 76. I look at the 10-year, 151. I look at volatility index, still trading, call it 17.5. So we are a lot of looking like where we closed yesterday. Energy started off the day hot. It's up about 0.5%. That moved to flat. Financials were up about 0.25%. They pulled back to flat. They moved a little bit into the red. Semiconductors were up about 0.6%. Last I looked, they were up maybe 0.25%. Little bit of an easing back from the opening from where we started. It did have a little bit of strength in AMD early on. It was up a couple of percent, but the semiconductors, although positive, not huge moves to the upside. Look at NVIDIA and Qualcomm and Marvell and those, they were in the green before I came on. And throw in Tesla. Tesla was up nearly 1% as well. Cruise ships, I mentioned yesterday, a little bit of pressure. That continues today. Obviously, some of what's going on right now in that industry, that's going to be some pressure. There's no doubt about that. But we are seeing some option activity in some of those names, or at least one of those names today. Carnival Cruise, Norwegian Cruise, a little bit of a hit to the downside. Those Chinese names, we talk about one step forward, two steps back. That's been the story behind these Chinese names. Have a good day here, then they start to slip once again. They're slipping again today. PDD, NetEase, I'm looking at Baidu. All of those pushed to the downside. Peloton was down about 1% last I looked, so giving back a little bit of yesterday, but a great bounce for them yesterday. At some point, that's a stock that actually will be all right. But their cash burn, some of the concerns, it's just an amazing stock that had that incredible meteoric run to the upside. But, you know, we talk about triple-digit, quadruple-digit PEs and no PEs. Well, that was one of the poster childs for that whole deal that was going on underneath the pandemic. So, got two unusuals. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be jumping on the halftime report today, giving you guys some unusual, just unusual, but stepping in and giving you a little bit of unusual option activity. They'll be different than the two that I've got right now. But let's start with this. Visa. Visa was trading around 216.6 or 216.20. Had a buyer, and this is very unusual, going all the way out to June. And a buyer of 2,500 of the June 220 calls, just out of the money calls. Fair amount of premium here. You're paying about $13. They were hedged because that is a lot of premium. Hedging meaning they bought the 220s, they're selling the 225s against that same size. That's what they're looking for in that trade there. Next, we've got Hilton. Now, we've talked about the reopen trade for a while now. We were seeing a nice acceleration of some of that. Got a little bit of a pullback now. But when you look within certain areas, obviously we talk about casinos. How about some of those hotels? Hilton hitting today, 156.11. We got February, again, going out a little bit into the time, grabbing a couple of months out there. The February 160 calls, 3,700 of those, they were going also a little expensive, $5.35, up a little bit north of $6 for those calls. Again, stock was trading about 156.11. I always give you those prices because it's important to know where the call buying started and where the options were getting traded for with that. So that when you take a look, you've got an idea of what really is happening now, because things do change in a hurry, both up and down. So obviously we've seen many markets where we've seen some incredible volatility, not as much the last couple of days as we've eased back, but always be conscious of those numbers. Folks, have a great day. Have a wonderful New Year's Eve and look forward to seeing you in 2022.